This video is going to talk about fractions on a number line. We have a number line here. Let's try to continue this pattern as we look at this number line. For example, we start at 0. We go all the way to the whole number 1. We can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces that this number line is split into between 0 and 1. And because of those 4 pieces, we know that this section is one piece, this section is a second piece, this section is a third piece, and this section is a fourth piece. Which means that when we continue this pattern on, we can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, the number line is still split into fourths in between whole numbers. So we're still looking at over a denominator of 4. Except instead of 1/4 here, this is actually going to be the 5th fourth, because we had 1, 2, 3, 4. This section is 5. Or we can look at it as 1 and 1/4, because after the whole number of 1, then there's 1/4 after. The next section would be 6/4, or 1 and 2/4. The next section would be 7, or 1 and 3/4. And then that last section would be 8/4, or 2 wholes. So we've reached the number 2. They want to know where -7 will be on the number line. -7/4 will be on the number line. They want to know what 2 integers will it be between. So let's go ahead. Let's look at +7/4. When we find +7/4 on the number line, it's in between the 1 and the 2, and it is closer to the 2. Let's see if that's the same. Let's see if that's similar on the negative side. So this would be -1/4. This would be, I'm going to go up and down because it's easier. -2/4, -3/4, -1. Because this is -1, that would be -4/4. Just like 1 is 4/4 over here, this would be -4/4. Then -5/4, -6/4, -7/4. And we can see that -7/4 is in between the integers -1 and -2. And both -7/4 and 7/4 are closer to either -2 or 2. Now, if we look at this number line, we can see it's still counting by ones. When we look at the fractions, it's just by ones in regards to quarters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we'd have -8. They want us to order these numbers from least to greatest. So let's remember our number line. Let's remember that 0 is the divider between positive and negative. So do we have anything that's a positive in these options? No, there's nothing that's a positive. 0 isn't positive or negative. It's special. So 0 is going to be the greatest number here. Now, what's the next biggest number? Well, do I have any proper fraction here? Any fraction that has the smaller number on top to show less than negative, to show that it's not quite -1 yet. And it turns out that just by looking at this, no, I don't have anything. This is improper and that's improper. They both have the bigger number on top. So that means that my next number is going to be -1. Now, -2, saying that there are 2 pizzas with 4 slices each, -2 would be the same as saying -8/4. So now I have -8/4, -5/4, -7/4. I'm just going to put these in order by their numerator because all of the denominators are the same. So what's my smallest number here? What's my biggest number here? What's the thing I'd want to lose the least? That would be -5/4. Then -7/4. And then -8/4. So there are those numbers, and we can verify by going back to the number line. So remember, -8, -7, -5/4, and then -1. -8/4, -7/4, -5/4, -1, 0. We put those in the right spot. Now, something that we do need to remember is that we weren't given -8/4, so we can't put that answer. We have to remember the original number, which was -2. So they want us to draw a number line of thirds from -2 to 2 and use it to compare these pairs of fractions. Well, we're just going to draw this right over everything here. We have 0, we have 1, we have 2, we have -1, we have -2. And they want us to divide these number lines into thirds, which means that there are going to be 3 sections in between, which means we need to make 2 cuts in each. So we're going to make 2 cuts here to show 1 hop, 2 hops, 3 hops. So it's cut into thirds. I'm going to make 2 cuts here. 2 cuts means 3 pieces. I'm going to go ahead and emphasize the whole numbers because it's going to be a little bit hard to read pretty soon. So when we make this number line of thirds, we have 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3. Going backwards, we would have the same thing, except less room to write it. -1/3, -2/3, -3/3, -4/3, -5/3, -6/3. So in our first question, which is difficult to read, we have -5/3 and -4/3. They want to know which one is bigger here when we compare these fractions. So which one is closer to our bigger end, not our little end? Is it -5/3, which is here, or -4/3, which is here? Well, -4/3 is closer to the big end, so -4/3 is our bigger number. Over here, we have -3/3 or +2/3. -3/3 is always going to be to the left of the 0. Anything that's anything that's negative will always be to the left of 0. 2/3 is positive. That's always going to be to the right of 0. Positive numbers are always bigger. That's pretty much a freebie. Then we have -2/3 and -1. So let's find -2/3, which is so neatly written right here, and then -1, which is over here. Which one is closer to the big end? -2/3 is closer to the big end. They want us to complete this number line. We can see that this is split into fourths. So we have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. This would be 4/4, but we don't write that because 1 stands for 4/4. If we complete this using whole numbers and fractions, we're going to use mixed numbers. So we can call this 1 and 1/4, 1 and 2/4, 1. Okay, well that's not the eraser. 1 and 3/4, and you can see how those fit in every time. Then we have 2 and 1/4, 2 and 2/4, 2 and 3/4, which would leave this, instead of saying 2 and 2/4, which is silly, we would give the next whole number, 3. Because if I say 2 and 4/4, that 4/4 means the same as 1. So that's saying 2 and 1. 2 and 1 together equal 3. We're going to complete the same number line, but on the negative side. So you try and go ahead and fill this out, and when you come back, we'll talk about it. Welcome back. Next to 0 on the left, on the negative side, would be negative 1/4, then negative 2/4, then negative 3/4, then negative 1. Then we go to negative 1 and 1/4, negative 1 and 2/4, negative 1 and 3/4. They want us to order these from least to greatest. Go ahead, try it on your own. When you come back, we'll talk about it. Welcome back. So if we have a number line that has negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, are there any positive numbers on here that we can put on the greatest side? No, there are no positives, which means that our biggest number here is going to be 0. The number that comes after that is going to be anything that's in between 0 and 1. So any sort of proper fraction or any fraction that's not a mixed number. I don't see any of those. So our next number is negative 1. Then we're going to find something that goes in between negative 1 and negative 2. Well, I see 2 of those. I see this answer and this answer. Negative 1 and 1/4, negative 1 and 3/4. Well, negative 1 and 1/4 would be about here. Negative 1 and 3/4 would be about here. So I'm going to put negative 1 and 1/4, negative 1 and 3/4, and then that leaves our smallest number here, which is that negative 2. I'm going to let you go ahead and look at the bonus. Now, we want to label these number lines from 2 to 3 with fifths. Try labeling the first number line, and then also try labeling that second number line. When you come back, we'll talk about it. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and take a look. So we have 2 to 3, and that's labeled in fifths. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means that this first curve right here is going to be 2 and 1/5 because we're already at the whole number of 2. The next one would be 2 and 2/5. Then 2 and 3/5. Then 2 and 4/5. And then 3. We're going to do the same thing down below, except we're kind of going to fill it out backwards because we're going in the negative direction. So it starts off with negative 2, and it goes to negative 2 and 1/5. Negative 2 and 2/5. Negative 2 and 3/5. Negative 2 and 4/5. Notice that we move right from the 2 to find 2 and 2/5, and we move left to find negative 2 and 2/5. Remember, because on a number line, we start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we look at the whole numbers, the fractions move the same direction. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. You have to remember, it's like being in a mirror. You move the other direction. So you'd move that way to find bigger positive numbers, and this way to find smaller numbers or a bigger digit with a negative sign. I'm going to let you go ahead and tackle these. All right, let me put these up. So we're going to draw a number line from fifths, from negative 7 to 6. So I'm going to draw my number line. I'm going to get rid of that little rectangle that shows up all the time. So we're starting at -7, going to -6. And we want this split into fifths. If I want to cut something into fifths, that means I need 4 lines. So we have our whole numbers. So this would be -6 and something, -6 and something over 5, -6 and something over 5, -6 and something over 5. Because it's split into fifths, this is 1 hop, so that's 1/5. 2 hops, 2/5. 1, 2, 3 hops, 3/5. 1, 2, 3, 4 hops is 4/5. They want us to go ahead and draw a number line of fifths from -4 to -3. And they still want those fifths, so let's put 4 cuts between 4 and 3 to get 5 pieces. Of course, those are evenly spaced, so we're not going to talk about that. And when we put on those fifths, -3 and some kind of fifth, that would be -3 and 1/5. -3 and 2/5. 1, 2, 3, -3 and 3/5. 1, 2, 3, 4, -3 and 4/5. They want us to mark -3 and 2/5. So I'm just going to circle it. I would suggest that you put a dot, but I've got enough scribbles on there. I'm going to let you try the number line of eighths. Think about how many cuts you'll need, and then think about in what direction the number lines go.